what is a small estate affidavit and what do you need to know? So there are some states for probate purposes where they have some version of what's called a small estate affidavit. That means that if the estate is below a certain value, it really makes the process a lot easier for the person without having to go through all the typical probate requirements. So each state is a little bit different, and some states do have what's called a small estate affidavit or some version of that. Unfortunately, Florida doesn't have that. Unfortunately, Florida does not have a small estate affidavit. They do have what's called a disposition without administration or some version of that. But that's very limited in what you can do with it. It's usually only for being able to get reimbursed for the person who's paid for funeral home expenses and for medical bills. That's really it. If you have to transfer real estate, you're going to have to use one of the other types of probate available in Florida, whether it be a summary administration or a formal administration. And so this comes up a lot because a lot of times it's very challenging for individuals if there's $1,000 in a bank account that they want to get out of a loved one's bank account. They've passed away. Well, you're still probably going to have to do some version of a probate, and it just might not even make sense to hire an attorney, and you'll have to try to do it yourself. And again, depending on the value of it, it may or may not even make sense. You have to pay the court a fee just to even open up a probate. So I wanted to do this video because, again, there's a lot of information online that talks about small estate affidavits, and we get those phone calls. But unfortunately, again, Florida doesn't have that. So if you have to do a probate, again, there is a disposition, what's called a disposition without administration or some version of that in Florida, but it's very, very, very limited. I almost never see a case where that applies. And so you'd have to go through either the summary or the formal administration, most likely for the majority of probates here in Florida.